So, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Can I extend my welcome as well? It is fantastic to see so many people here this morning. So, I'm Chief Exec at British Marine, and we're the trade association looking after leisure marine in the UK with about 1,500 members. And we have a number of members here, both at METS, in Pavilion, in Hall 3, and also in the Super Yacht Pavilion this morning. So, we also own and operate the Southampton Boat Show, and Women in Marine there has been a hugely popular and a really important part of our show for many years now. So we're really proud this morning to be partnering with Sounding Trades Only and with METStrade to produce the first ever women's event here at METStrade. And we really hope it's going to go forward and be bigger and better every year. Before I hand over the mic to Michelle, I just want to extend a special thank you actually this morning to two people. One of whom is Suzanne Blaustone, sitting in the audience here, Chief Exec at Barton Marine. Now, she's been a key planner and has actually been really part of the driving force behind this event this morning. And I just want to say thank you to her. And I also want to say thank you to Lindsay McClay as well from Marine Industry News, who's helped us advertise this event widely, which is what we needed to do. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over. But I just wanted to say we hope this is going to be the first of many successful events for women in the marine industry internationally here at METStrade. Because if we work together like this, we can make sure that the marine industry becomes more inclusive and diverse, which is our aim. So, may I now hand over, please, to Michelle Goldsmith, who's the publisher at Sounding Trades Only. Thank you. Michelle.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I don't think my mic is working. Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. It is very early, and I think a lot of us were at an awards tonight. We certainly appreciate you getting up early for this first ever event focused on women international, the Women in the Marine Industry International event at METStrade. I am Michelle Goldsmith. I'm the publisher of Sounding Trades Only and Soundings. And although I work in media now, I've spent about 30 years in manufacturing operations, sales, marketing, and product development in the component side of the marine industry. And British Marine has been doing a fantastic job in the UK of promoting women's events. In North America for the past 17 months, quarterly, we've done virtual women's events. And at this point, we've had about 900 women and men who have attended these events. And you can actually see the content, some of the content, at tradeonlytoday.com/we, W-I-I. So with that said, I'm going to ask the panel to come up. I first want to say that this is a dynamic group of women. And although they may seem different, they come from different parts of the globe. They hold different positions. They work in different segments of the industry. There are distinct commonalities between them. They are all curious. They want to know how things work. They want to learn. They believe in the power of inclusion, of communication, and diversity. They have a true passion for what they do and a desire to lift up those with whom they work. There is an African phrase that I love that I think sums it up amongst these women, and it's the word Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. And it is that attitude, that mentality, and that sense of leadership as stewardship that is common amongst all of these women. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Malin Schwartz, the Senior Vice President of Volvo Penta.
Thank you.
Nona Pedersen, who is the General Manager of Propspeed. Delphine Plains, who is the Vice President of Purchasing Groupe Beneteau, Boat Division. Barbara Amerio, who is the CEO of PerMare Group. And Leontien Moulijn, who is the Franchise Development Manager, EMEA, at Freedom Boat Club. Ladies, please have a seat. So, I've had a chance to speak with all of the ladies, and we've exchanged some information, and we have some information to share with you this morning. And the way that we're going to start is I've asked them to share their career path so you can get a sense of their background and what advice or tips that they would give to our audience. So I'll start with you, Malin. You've had a long and varied career with Volvo Penta, and I love that you said to me, dare to speak up and know the business.
Yes. But I would like to first say thank you so much for all the people coming here. It's fantastic to see lots of females and male. And thank you so much, Michelle, for inviting me here.
Oh, I know. Applause for that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I have had a long career within Volvo. It's been both Volvo cars and now recently Volvo Penta. And same as you, everything from product marketing to product management. Actually had the opportunity to introduce a V8 in an XC90 a long time ago to a new car management team, and then also lately brand communication and marketing. Always with focus on more of management or leadership, not always being the manager. When I was handling the commercial side of a new car, it was more than 35 people in the project. And no one were reporting to me, and I can say that takes a lot of practicing of leadership skills to get everyone to come on board. But it's been a fantastic career, and I am a true Volvo fan. But if we come back to the advice as well, I think I have one that is maybe an old one, but I really like, and that choose your manager wisely. You know, choose a manager that wants you to grow for the one you are, you know, build on your strengths and support you in the way you do your career. That I think is an important one. And then you said it yourself, know the business. I mean, knowing the business, how the business works, and not only how it has been working, but also curious about what is coming around the corner, I think is key, you know.
Yes, and you're always curious about that.
Exactly, you know, base it around facts. And then, as you say, dare to speak up. I think sometimes we come into an industry and we just take for granted, since many have been there for a long time, they know everything. But sometimes you can come with a totally different angle. And if you know the business, then dare to speak up. And I would argue, like, if you are a female in a male-dominated industry, people know who you are. So try to take that, make an impact, make a difference, you know, based on facts. Dare to speak up. Don't just take for granted that everyone knows. Those would be my 3 advices.
That's true. There are an army of men coming to visit them, and there's that one woman, and especially if you know your product and your company well, you will stand out.
Yeah.
That's great.
Take the opportunity, make an impact.
And Nona, on to you. You have been at Propspeed since 2014, and I think you've had every role within Propspeed. You call yourself a coatings nerd. So why don't you tell us about your experience and what advice that you'd give to our audience?
Yeah. Oh, hello. Can you hear me? All right. Might have to project my voice. Sorry. Yeah, so tomorrow is actually my 8-year work anniversary with Propspeed, and my entire career has been with this company, and I'm honestly so blessed to be working for a great company. As you said, Malin, it's important to choose your manager, but also the business that you want to work for. So back in 2014, I was fresh out of university, had a brain full of ideas and didn't really know much about actually working in the workforce. So it was a massive learning curve for me, and I've loved every minute of it. When I started, there were three and a half of us working at Propspeed, and today there's 32 of us around the world. So it's been a fantastic growth journey, and I've been very lucky. As you said at the start, I think I did everything. I did marketing, I was out packing boxes in production, I was mixing paint and R&D, I was helping with budgeting, I was booking travel and organising boat shows, you name it, I did it. But for me, it was fantastic because I got to learn every aspect of the business in a very short amount of time. And as the team grew and evolved, and as the business did as well, I was very fortunate to grow with it. Which is really great. And it's important to choose a company and surround yourself with people who want to support that growth with you. And yeah, it's just been a great ride. And even now looking back, I was saying to my team what we started off with at Mets back 8 years ago, and now looking at the stand today, it's so beautiful. And I was like, wow, it's such an incredible thing to look back and reflect on where we've come, but also it's so exciting to look where we're going, and especially this industry and the innovation that's happening and seeing some great people come in And for me, it's so important to see more new people from different areas, different backgrounds, all types of ages, wherever they're from, and bringing some new, exciting experience into the marine industry. It's so important. And that diversity, I know it's a bit of a buzzword, but it is something that we really need because that's how we change and evolve.
You are absolutely right, and it reminds me, Brenna Presser with Brunswick made a statement to CNBC that women actually make up 2% of the workforce in the marine industry. So a mighty 2%, but still a 2%, so we definitely have room for growth. And I'm going to go on to Delphine now. You are truly a citizen of the world. You speak multiple languages, I think including Mandarin, yes?
Yes.
And please share with the audience that exciting background.
Not in Mandarin.
It's amazing listening to what you had to say about where you came from and how you got to Groupe Beneteau.
Well, I am a French national with a British upbringing, well-travelled. Started my career in the automotive and then home appliances, but always in industrial purchasing. Joined the marine industry over a decade ago within Groupe Beneteau. Didn't know the back from the front of a boat back then. Barely do now. a bit better, thankfully. And always been working in purchasing. Definitely a pure product of the world is my oyster generation. I was born in the 80s, early 80s, but still the 80s. And no, it's just been a great ride. This industry is fascinating because we operate worldwide. And if you come to think of it, what is it that we do? We bring people together on water. And I very much back up the comments that were made on choose the people you work with, choose the people you work for. Definitely very important because you can reproduce virtuous behavior. And talent brings out the best in you, that's for sure. So.
Yes, and an environment where you can thrive.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is definitely, look at that, so many men around the audience today. Only the best are here. Recognize a few of them.
That's fantastic. And I'm going to go on to Barbara. And Barbara, I give you so much credit. You are so strong. You took the reins of a company in the midst of a global crisis, and you have built that business to such an incredible point from an ESG perspective, from the product perspective. And if you could share how you got to the point that you're at and what advice you'd give to our audience.
Yes, thank you for the invitation. First, it's very important an event like this. I'm proud to be here because I think I'm a symbol of what can change in the industry. I have took the power of the company in 29 when has exploded the crisis, so it was not a good period. And but I'm courageous, and I want also to make strong the team. And I have explained that when there are obstacles, you can find the force to go behind. And proposing to invest in new product. This was an escape for the crisis. So all the money that we have put on one side has invested in a new project, and finally we have escaped the crisis and become stronger and stronger.
Yes, we have. All the better for it, yes? And Leontien, you came from a completely different, two different industries, diplomacy and pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
And now you're at Freedom Boat Club. Tell us about your journey.
Well, my background is very international because I was born and raised in the Dutch Caribbean, the island called Curaçao, where I was raised on boats my whole life. So it's part of my DNA. And then I had to study abroad because the island is way too small. That already brought me into my next identity. And from then on, I worked in many different countries across the world. My background is purely international business, and which landed me the jobs that brought me to the job that I am today. And how did I get there? It's that most important, and I think for letting other women know in the industry, try different industries, try to learn a lot in the different aspects of business, and that's how you stumble upon something you're passionate about. And but one thing kind of led me, working in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, getting out of my comfort zone, and making sure that every time that you do such a different aspects of business, it's a big learning curve, and it brings you to the next level of, you're always looking at yourself, how can I get at that next level to succeed. So coming back to Europe, I was in the franchising development, working on really selling franchisees in the gym arena, until I stumbled on Brunswick that was looking for someone to help them expand the franchise for Freedom Boat Club here in Europe. And one thing led to the other, and again, going out of your comfort zone, setting up the business for Brunswick here in Europe, landing and expanding. And what has really been an extremely exciting part is learning a lot, getting to know people in this industry. And it's a very fun industry to be working in. So I would highly suggest everyone to, keep on searching for what you like, and be in the unit or working for someone who's going to help you succeed.
Yes, and building your network, which is one of the opportunities that you had here this morning. So I'm going to go on to the next question, which is, who has inspired you as a leader and why, and how has that person impacted you? And Barbara, you were telling me about your father and the impact that your father had on you and his advice to you, and you gave me a percentage of what life is like for women in Italy that really floored me. So if you could fill in our audience on that conversation, that would be great.
Yes, I grew up with a father that tell me, believe in your position. You are famous, but nothing can limit you. Take a change and go on. He really believe in the women strong force. So this has given me a big push to try new challenge. And he say, first you need a job. But not only to be successful, you need the skills. So study and increase your skill, because with this luggage, you don't risk to make a mistake. More you have increase your studies, and more you have a whole vision how to face the obstacle. But it's important also the financial independence for women. And 1 month ago, in a financial event, I have discovered a tragic figures. In Italy, 37% of women has not a bank account. They depend on the family. And this has to change, because you need to be independent. And this is a tragic data, but we have to know and try to fight.
Yes.
To change.
That was incredible to me. 37% of women
and are
in Italy do not have
women.
So it's more the older generation that does not have the bank account. And
It's a mixture between old and younger generation, but we have to change this.
Well, they need strong role models like yourself to do so, yes? And Malin, you were telling me about an opportunity that you had in your early 30s in Volvo that really took you out of your comfort zone, and yet it propelled you forward in your career. Why don't you say a bit about that?
Absolutely. I'm really happy to hear about you, Barbara. Role model, we like that. I think the manager I had then, or what's to become my manager actually, because he was a manager within Volvo that came to me. I was around 30. I came from the commercial side. And he approached me and he asked me if I wanted to come and work in his team together with the product managers. And I was looking at his team, and they were 55-ish, 60, 7 of them engineers. And I was thinking, why? Why do you want me in that team? And he said, well, we need someone who has a different thinking, has more of an outside-in, based decisions on customer facts, and has the guts and the drive to push that. You will learn everything about the products later. And I was like, yeah, why not? Curious person I am. And I mean, it could have been a success or failure depending on also how he acted, because he gave me freedom. He trusted me. He was super confident in what I was doing, never micromanaged, really allowing me to grow. Come with a lot of stupid questions, I guess I had now and then, but still. And it was so fantastic to see that it was a huge success. It made a big impact on my career. And I also learned also from him that that is the kind of leader I want to be. I want to have different perspective. It's good. Sometimes it takes a bit longer, but it's so nice, you know, when 1 + 1 = 3, and not just doing the same thing as you've always done. So he inspired me a lot, and he also, you know, made me take a big step in my career.
That's fantastic. I had a similar situation. I was the first woman to be asked to be on the ABYC, American Boat and Yacht Council, technical board. I am an ABYC certified electrician, or was. And when I walked in, it was mainly men in their 60s, some with their oxygen tanks. And I was the only piece of estrogen in the room. But it was a great way to gain credibility and to learn and to build a network of men who were extremely supportive as I moved through the rest of my career. So I'm going to go to the next question, which is, what is the greatest business challenge that you've encountered, championed, and conquered? And how did you do it? And what lessons did you learn? And I'm going to go to you, Leontien, because the answers that we all discussed had a lot to do with COVID and with the financial crisis in 2008. But you had a very different set of circumstances that you were dealing with, where you were closing offices in diplomacy in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So tell the audience a bit about what you went through.
Yeah, that was a big decision by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to close many of the offices where the Dutch in New Zealand, which was about 250,000 Dutch living there, were not able to just go to an office nearby and request a passport and identity card, which is basically your life. So when they heard that they were going to close down many of those offices and they would have to travel and spend money, obviously this brought in many complaints back to the Netherlands here. And how did we resolve that? It was the most important thing to do is to get into the field and go to all these remote areas in New Zealand and really speak face to face, consult with them, make sure that they felt at ease, that you are communicating the new services and new processes in place. What does it mean is listening to their story, why were they concerned, and bringing them back to, yeah, there are other options out there. We're working on solutions, digital platforms, and so on, and there are ways to get your identity card the new way. But that was all new for them. And what it taught me is that you have to go and speak face to face and put time and effort to communicate the story. It brings people at ease, and what I've learned from it is you can adopt that same approach to any business environment. And I would, I do that now from that moment on. A applying that same approach, that same skill, making sure that you focus, you commit, and you make sure that, you communicate the changes and why it's all better for the greater good. So that you can do that in sales, in marketing, in negotiations, you name it. It will help you really prioritize and succeed in the
And
project.
you said something I thought was important too, which is to give people time to digest the information
Correct.
that you give them.
Yes.
I think a lot of times we keep moving. There's that sense to keep pushing forward, and you don't give them that time to actually consume what you've given them.
And give them the time to ask questions. That's the most important part. Make them feel that you are thinking about their perspective and their worry, basically. And it's pure communication and making sure you are listening.
And Nona, you had a lot to say about community and connection, especially during the time of COVID,
Yes.
where New Zealand was quite isolated from the rest of the globe. So why don't you talk about how you uniquely used those two skills?
Yes. So, being at the bottom of the world, it was a little bit challenging, and I think the way our country handled COVID was very different. We were very fortunate in the start. We locked down really hard, so we got to have a lot of freedom. But then we knew that it was going to come. And so for us, the biggest challenge was basically being cut off from the rest of the world. Thankfully, just before COVID had happened, we'd started really investing in our offshore markets, putting people on the ground, putting warehouses set up in Europe and in the USA. So that meant that there was no disruption to our supply chain. But what the biggest challenge was connecting our international team. We have 12 people based offshore. And a lot of them were hired during COVID, and it's not the same having a Zoom interview. You can't really get to know them. You can't sit down and have a wine or a beer with them and actually get to know them as a person. It's too formal. And so for us, basically we had to adopt the approach of there's no such thing as over-communication, but also communicating with purpose and making sure that what we're sharing and what we're saying actually adds value, so they don't disengage, so they're not, another long email from New Zealand, I really don't want to read that. It's just making sure that it's something that's relatable to them and connecting them. We tried the whole Zoom drinks on a Friday, and the time zones didn't work out very well, especially up here. It's like, no, I don't want to have a wine at 6 a.m., sorry. But we did get creative, and the big thing that we did was we set a goal to reunite our team as soon as we could. And that was kind of the light at the end of the tunnel for us is, come on, guys, it's not that long. The world's going to open up again. And as soon as we could, we brought our entire team together in the most central place we could find, which was Boston in the USA. And it was great just being able to meet these people. It was funny, when you have all these Zoom meetings and you have no idea what these people are actually like. You think, this person's going to be really tall or this person's really short. It was so amazing to be able to connect with them, and you definitely never take that for granted. And even just being here today, being able to meet our customers and having that face-to-face connection is so important, and making sure that your communications are not just what you want to say, it's a two-way street. It's understanding what do people want to hear, how can you add value, as you were saying, is taking the time to listen to them, so that way the communication is meaningful and purposeful and not just sending out information and hoping it sinks in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we all have a lot of gratitude for being able to gather again. So I'm going to go to the next question, which is, how do you empower yourself and women around you? And Delphine, I'm going to ask you, because you had said to me that it's breeding diverse talent. I know today we're in a women in the industry, marine industry meeting, but it is about diversity as a whole. And you talked about the way that you build your teams and the talent that you work for. So if you could elaborate on that.
Yes, well, actually, diversity is not at the forefront of my objectives as a manager. We try to entice skills, to develop skills. We try to focus on talent, rather. And diversity comes as a consequence. It's basically basic purchasing strategy. If you outsource, if you diversify your sources, it's more difficult for them to run dry. So if I look at my team of buyers, they're spread across 8 countries. It's 25 of them, male, female, young, old, very experienced, rookies, have a bit of everything. And their contribution really springs from that diversity, but it's not at the forefront of my objectives. It comes as a consequence.
Absolutely. And I would say one of the things that was discussed at our events in North America is we never want someone to check a box that they want a certain number of X, Y, or Z. You want the job because you've earned.
I want them to tick all the boxes.
And Malin, you had written to me about balance, curiosity. You are one of the most curious people I know. And your interest in what's happening digitally and actually with legalities and the digital transparency across the globe, you want to talk about that.
Absolutely. I just want to latch on to what Delphine is saying. I think it's really about, making sure that your team tick all the boxes today, but also tick all the boxes tomorrow. So be ahead of the game, understanding what lays around the corner, what do we need to know, what do we need to maybe try in order to gain some more knowledge. And as a team, not only as an individual, but as a team, to have that, create that safe environment in the team where people, face it, in our team, we try things, and so we learn sometimes, and then we accelerate and have a success. But in some cases, we try and learn. That's it. And I think that is important. And what I see now, which I am really, really curious about, because as you said, I'm a very curious person, that is the combination of all the legal requirements that are coming now from a traceability, human rights, sustainability, combined with the digital world where we have all the data. So what is the next level of hygiene factor information that we, in a very clever way, needs to show? And also, how can we use, because for many of us working in the industry, when it comes to policies, they are normally like it's 20 pages and you have to read them through all of them. How can we make them more easy to understand? Because everybody wants to follow, everybody wants to do the right in the business, I think. It's just sometimes it's difficult. So the combination there, yes.
It is.
It's something that I really, really, and then also I think we need to keep an eye on what is happening like from a general perspective in the world with the GDPR and so forth.
Exactly. And a way that we can all globally work together
Yes.
and thrive, but within those constraints as well.
But it's always for the good. It's for the good business, the ethical business that we all want to run. So this is why I think it's fun. So.
Absolutely. And Barbara, I think you had something really lovely to say about providing the flexibility for a diverse workforce and making it viable for them.
Yes, my question is how to help women with families to work with us. So I think the flexibility is one way. So we use flexible hours, and also all the people who work has different roles. So if someone has absent, other one can cover the role. And because women with families are enrich the company. They are born problem solver. They are really motivated, and is a period of the life where family is on their shoulder. But later they will be very trusted in the company that has given the possibility in this period giving flexibility, and I think is a treasure have women with families in our companies.
It's a master class in multitasking.
Yeah.
So going on, how do you make yourself and your ideas heard within your organization? Nona, you talked about buy-in and collaboration. So if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, so if I have an idea or I see an opportunity to develop or make something better, I'm very collaborative. I love working with different people so I can understand their perspectives. So that way it's not just a tunnel vision approach, it's how can I look at the bigger picture. And so what I tend to do is I'll go and talk to and work with different people, different stakeholders, sometimes internal, sometimes external, depending on what it is that I'm working on. And I'll gather that information and pull it together and work with them to come up with a great solution. So then you've got their buy-in because they're already sold. They're like, oh yeah, this actually sounds like a great idea. I've had some involvement with it. I've shaped it in some way. So that when you go to pitch your idea to whoever it is, you've already got your team backing you, and it makes it so much easier than just going, I have a great idea, like listen to me. I just find it doesn't work, and in the end it's a lot faster, it's a lot more efficient by working together at the start rather than bringing people in right at the end, because I find you just end up wasting your time if you're working in a silo. You need to be collaborative.
Yeah, we talk about little yeses make it hard to eventually say no.
Yeah.
And Delphine, you had talked about contribution, legitimacy, and trust.
Yes, I think, and this has also been said before by Malin, it all comes down to, as a team member, your value as a team member, how much do you contribute to the greater good, to the project? How do you intertwine? Communication skills are super important, but ultimately, what do you bring to the team, to the project? Contribution brings legitimacy. It's not about being this top-notch manager or having whatever diploma or whatever experience. Is actually, how do you contribute? What do you bring? This brings legitimacy. Whenever you have legitimacy, you trigger trust. And wherever there's trust, there's hope for excellence.
Yes.
Again, let's not underestimate the value of the team. I feel very fortunate because for those of you who know them, my team members, the people I work with, are experts. They're excellent. They drink a fair amount of gin and tonic, but they're here today. My team members are not here yet. I'm kind of worried, actually. But it all comes down to this. It's an alchemy, isn't it? It's how do we bring out the best in one another? And it all comes down to contribution, skill. Am I legitimate? Yes, you are, if you can contribute. And the legitimacy, again, triggers trust. Surround yourself with people you can inspire, you get inspired by, and who will ultimately believe in you, trust in you, because you contribute. Nothing to do with gender.
Absolutely. And I think it's also because you get your hands dirty. You do that work alongside them.
Yeah. We do kind of get our hands dirty. You know, purchasing over the past 24 months has actually very much intertwined with the supply chain and procurement side of things. But we're still standing.
Yes. And Malin, you actually, I'm going to go to you for the next question. My friend Tom Demrick, who used to run the NMMA, had a great saying that I will never forget, which is that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so with that said, I wanted to ask this question of the group, which is, as a leader, how do you stay mindful of who is at the table and who is missing? And Malin, you talked about a master's class that you had and a really interesting project that you did that revealed information to you about inclusion. So if you could talk to the audience about that.
I will definitely do that, but I will just start with, I think that this is something we have practiced now, a lot of leaders, on how to work with this during the COVID, when all you see is a black screen, then it's kind of hard to understand who is at the table for real and who is not at the table. So it's been a very interesting, I think, learning for all of us, to be honest. But that specifically for me was, when it comes to this, you need to understand yourself. And I think that what you were talking about here was, I did a Master of Science and International Management. Very interesting. We were a group of 20 people from all around the world, and we were doing different theses. And along when we did this over a year, we also were having one module, which was called Preparing for Leadership. And during this Preparing for Leadership, we got a lot of feedback. We were filmed, people could come with their, feedback, how are you working, why are you doing this, and so forth. And we had to write the diary. And then once the year was over, we had to write a thesis based on the diary, and then backed up by theories. So I had to sit there and reflect on how I had changed. And that for me was really, understanding how important inclusion is, to get the different perspective. Because the people that knew me before, I was like that high-speed train in Japan. I was just running. And now I'm still I'm fast, curious, but now I always secure that I have people with me. And I think that was, and also how to get people on board, because it's not the same thing. All people are different, and you need to meet people where they are and practice it. So it was a huge learning, but it was a self-reflective learning triggered by external class, which I have continued with afterwards as well. It's really good. It's good advice.
That is good advice. I also had to do a 360 evaluation with all stakeholders. My bosses, the people that I work with, and the outside stakeholders. And you do learn an awful lot about how you interface with all of those people, and I highly suggest it. It definitely changed how I work as a leader. Barbara, you talked about ESG and how ESG really kind of leads you within your path. Can you speak to how that manifests itself at your company?
I find in ESG like driving lines for our company. So I put ethics, sustainability, and innovation. These are our three directions, and involving all the team and make them give his own contribution. Because we are trying to tick the box of each ESG and complete the road that we have chosen. The direction means that in our company the profit is not so important. There are other objectives, very complex objects that will drive to the future.
It's so important. In the U.S., it's become a mainstay of Wall Street. When you present your earnings, you present ESG. Mm-hmm. And for the marine industry, we as Soundings Trade Only actually had one of the heads of B corporations come speak to our group about how ESG could be used within companies. And it was surprising to me that the majority of CEOs that I knew within the industry were not familiar with B Corps. So understanding how ESG can impact the business is really fantastic, and I applaud you for that. And Leontien, you talked about mindfulness in how you actually build your meetings. Can you talk to that?
Yeah, when I'm the core of building meetings is really ensuring that we're talking all about it, being inclusive, for sure, and but also the size and the knowledge that they're bringing to the table, their network that they're bringing to the table, their backgrounds being diverse. It's also going to influence the outcome. So those are very key for the success of and in the best interest of the organization. So you really have to think it through before you pick the people on your team, and ensure you empower them to do the work, and that they get the freedom and that you're not micromanaging. I think that's very important, because then they grow, they become more confident, bringing their ideas to the table. And I always say, every idea is a good idea, because we can learn from it and test it and see if it's something valuable to the company or if it's not. So really picking and then all the meetings always have different objectives. So you need other people at the table to achieve those objectives. So that's how I mix and match and make sure that we get the best outcome from those meetings.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to go to Nona first on this, but how do you manage resistance or obstacles in your path? you said something unique about looking at obstacles as opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when I was younger, I used to think of obstacles as like very offensive, like, oh no, they don't like me, or I took it personally. And now what I've learned is you need to step back and look at the bigger picture, get into the helicopter and understand why. Famous Simon Sinek quote is start with why. And I apply that to everything with my marketing brain is why. Why am I facing these obstacles? And where's the opportunity in there to grow or develop or do better? And so I always step back and I look at the bigger picture and understand why is someone saying no to me, or why is this not working, or why is there resistance? And by looking at the bigger picture and seeing, oh, actually, this might be a different perspective and a different way to look at it, then you can understand and kind of reframe it and restructure it so that it does work. And that for me, every day it's so important to continue learning and growing, and as you say, be curious and figure out why something is the way it is, so that way you can make a better or present a better option.
Absolutely. And I'm going to keep things moving because I know everyone needs to get to the show floor. But we've got two questions left, and this one is for everyone, and it is, what advice would you give to women who are entering the marine industry or the next generation of female leadership? And Malin, you said something that I loved. It said, dare to learn, dare to try, and dare to fail.
Yes. I think that actually, first of all, I would like to all of you here now to invite your female colleagues to come into the marine industry, because it's fantastic, and it's only 2% female, so we need more. And I think we need more because we need to grow as an industry and also be relevant for the future. And that is why I have this dare to try new things, dare to fail, which is not a failure if you learn. So for me, that is an important thing, always to be ahead and strive for, because we're in a transformation. There's a lot of opportunities right now in the industry. So bring it on, that's what I say.
Bring it on.
We need to make the marine industry as fun it's been up to now, also for the future, by bringing in new perspectives and new female and male talents.
Absolutely. And Nona, you talked about learning and constantly learning.
Yeah, absolutely. My big thing is don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. I actually get my hands dirty, paint under the underside of boats, scrubbing off barnacles, all that. But it's just, don't be afraid to get stuck in and do the hard work. Be curious, ask those questions. My whole first year at Propspeed was learning how it all works. I was probably so annoying, asking all these painful questions like, why does this do that? When I first started, I was the same as you, knew nothing about boats. I thought anti-foul prevented chickens from doing something because I'm from the country. So it was a massive learning curve for me, and every day I'm still trying to learn, still trying to understand. I mean, this industry is so massive. There's so many areas where you can get into. And I think that's the most incredible thing, is there's so much opportunity. You don't have to stick to one area, and you don't have to know everything either, to be honest. It's one of those things. You don't have to be an expert in certain things, but if you find something that you genuinely enjoy and are passionate about, then run with it. It's a fantastic industry to work in, and we get to go to some pretty cool places as well, I have to admit. That's what I tell all my friends, is there's nothing wrong with joining the marine industry. You don't need to know anything about boats to get stuck in. That there's some fantastic people who want to help support you on your journey. So really what it is you get out of it what you put in, and that's the essence of it.
Absolutely. And Delphine, you said no room for criticism. It's all about the work.
Yeah, it's all about the work. If you put in the work and you're curious and you're willing to learn and you contribute and you're competent, there's definitely going to be room for you. You won't even have to make it for yourself, because people will come towards you and the opportunities will flow in. And again, we're not exactly the first ladies here taking those steps forward. I work for a company who has for decades been managed by the first lady boss ever. I don't know if any of you have ever had the chance to intertwine or meet with Madame Roux, but she's still, to this day and age, very much here and very much present, and she has this amazing energy, and she's done it, and she's paved the way for all of us. So we owe it to ourselves and,
To pay it forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And Barbara, you have some really positive role models that have inspired you? And if you said no limits.
No limits. My role model, each one can have the best one. I have an astronaut, Samantha Cristoforetti.
Yeah.
She has gone in the space, so why don't choose yachting as your work? But also before Margarita Hack, she's very unusual astrophysics, so as a show how to face with STEAM studies, but in a different way. So just put also rebellion as a small attitude and change vision because we have to be unique. So you can put your unicity in your work.
Absolutely. And I think it's the stories that we say in our head. And if the story in your head is that there's no limits, then it's that push to go forward and be outside of the comfort zone. So Leontien, you also talked about trying different aspects similar to what Nona had said.
Yeah, it's definitely trying out different areas of the business, but understanding that the marine industry is very big. So if you have an engineering background, if you're in law, if you are in operations, if you're in supply chain, it's all there. And go out there and research about the industries and what do they have to offer, and knock on the doors, talk to HR once in a while, ask questions. How do I fit in this organization? I think a lot of women, when you think of the marine industry, you think of men behind a steering wheel of a vessel, and you don't think that, but you can be on the steering wheel of that vessel as well.
Well,
so,
and 35% of members in Freedom Boat Club
yes,
are women. So they are behind the wheel of that vessel.
Exactly. We've broken down some of the big barriers in the industry that we have 35% of our members. We have 80,000 members worldwide of the Freedom Boat Club, and 35 are women now taking boats on the water every day.
Yes,
So,
and actually within Brunswick, 50% of Mercury's manufacturing floor is female.
yes,
Wisconsin.
yes. We really prioritize getting women into the industry because, in any industry, everybody brings something exciting to the table that we can all learn of, and it's not gender related.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. And I would say it's also about building your network. There are amazing women within this industry, and men who are really supportive. We did a mentoring program in May, a virtual mentoring program, and I sat and got buy-in on the idea from my two mentors who are legendary men within this industry. And they said, what about us? Look at your mentors. Are they female? You have to include us. And we had a mix of both men and women that were leaders that you could have a 30-minute virtual session with, which will be repeated this spring. But I would say build your network. And now that you know who we are on this panel and who's been in this audience through LinkedIn or other platforms or here on the show floor, that Niels has provided such a great networking space. Building that network is a great way to build up your career as well. And the final question today is, do you think that providing networking opportunities for women is still needed within the industry, or have we escalated above the ceiling, and those who went before created a climate where younger women just are equal to men in their pursuits of successful careers in marine positions? And Barbara, you had an interesting answer to this, and it had to do with education and also with STEM, which I thought was really interesting. If you could speak to that.
Yes, it's important to open the industry and explain which are the career available. There are a lot concerning digitalization, 4.0 skills, engineering, STEAM studies give large opportunities also in yachting. And we have to explain and show how attractive is work in yachting. And going to school, creating courses adapted to make students choose yachting after like a job. So it's important our role. We are all a role model, and we have to explain better our work.
And offer those skills, correct?
Yeah.
Or a way to learn those skills. And Nona, you had some thoughts on what's being done today and what could be done in the future, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. One, I think this is fantastic. It is so cool to see, just looking out at you all, seeing so many women, but also the men. Thank you, men, for turning up, because you're part of it, helping us make this more inclusive and making it better. And for
Only
me,
the best are here.
only the best. Only the best. But yeah, I think, you know, it would be lovely to be in a place where we wouldn't have to do this, but the reality is we do. I mean, in New Zealand, we're the first government to have 50% women and men in Parliament, and, you know, there's still a long way to go. So for me, it's the more the better, is how can we connect more, how can we network more, it's how can we have meaningful conversations and support each other and lean on each other, and it's great that this is here and a great forum for us to start, but I'd love to see more and more of it, because you know, this is the big part. This is one of the things I love about this industry, is meeting interesting, fascinating people that are doing brilliant things, and if you can connect with them and share and inspire each other, then why not? That's so fun, and that's what really drives me and what I'm passionate about, and I hope that's what other people about, is, you know, it's the human experience of connecting and sharing great experiences.
Absolutely. And I would say to you, you know, we started our events in North America. It was just supposed to be 2 groups of women that we had dinner together. And before we knew it, there were 400 women at the first session. And what we learned from that was that there is this desire for community. And there is desire for a safe place to ask questions. And I think seeking out other women helps with that. And these types of events provide that sense of community. And Delphine, I'm going to give the final word to you, because you were talking about Sheryl Sandberg and about Madame Roux. And if you want to speak to those women and what you have to say about providing these kinds of events.
There's no obstacle. It's all about opportunities, always. Always. And if they're not making any room for you, then go seek it elsewhere, because you definitely deserve to be where you're at. And it's all about development and growing and contributing. And yeah, go for it.
Lean in.
Lean in. If you've not read the book, read it.
Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us. A special thank you to METStrade, to Niels, and especially to Patricia Becker. Where are you in your beautiful purple suit, Patricia Becker? She was instrumental in making this happen for us. A big thank you to Leslie Robinson and Terry and Emma and the team at British Marine. Thank you to Susan Blaustone and Barton Marine for their support, and to Lindsay and the team at Marine Industry News. I would like to thank all of the panelists, and most of all, thank all of you, and wish you a wonderful show. Do we have a little bit of time for questions? We have microphones, so if you have questions for any of the panelists, please raise your hand.
There's
No.
one. Yeah, there's one.
There we go.
Have any of you ever experienced a gender-based roadblock, and how did you deal with that?
That's not even an option. Smash it.
I would say to you that things will always be said, and what you have control over is how you react to it.
Exactly.
And what I've found, in my experience, works best is humor and grace.
Because we are ultimately superior.
I would like to add also, don't see it as something which you will learn from, to take away. You know, what are you learning when you do it? But don't see it as an obstacle. See it as a learning. Gives you a more positive attitude to it. And as you say, smash it.
Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, good morning. Hi. Yeah. So it's more just as a comment. I'm from Colombia. I started in the industry probably 4 years ago. And I have to say it's very inspiring to see so many different women, different nationalities, and see how inclusive we can make this. It's not just talking and saying, it's really doing it, and it's really opening the doors. Coming from a third world country, it's not as easy as could be for people from Europe or the UK. So seeing that everyone is really on the same page about collaboration and about saying, like, let's try to hold hands and to really push one to another, because even women between women are very, very harsh to each other. So it's knowing that it's a hard industry, but it's not impossible to make it happen, and it's not impossible to grow, and it's not impossible to really make a difference. So thank you very much for this event, because we have been here with my colleagues for the whole week, and it's the first time that I'm hearing talking about inclusion from women and not from a panel full of guys just saying it. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. And I think that's a perfect way for us to end, and we are just about on time. Thank you all for joining us, and have a wonderful show.
And thank you to you,
Thank
Michelle.
you, Michelle.
Invite.
Thank you.
Hooray, Michelle.